In June of 2010, based on your wife's response, and she shared that letter with you based on what you said before, she shared that letter with you sometime in June of 2010, right?
Which letter?
The letter I showed you earlier?
Yes.
She shared that with you at that point in time, and I'm sure you discussed it, right?
We did.
Okay. And based on the emails I received, it would seem that it was believed to be true, right?
For a few minutes, yes.
Okay. What changed your mind?
Well, first of all, the only reason she believed it is because of what you told her. After analyzing it, looking at it, it didn't add up.
Okay. And conversations with the prosecutor, perhaps?
No.
Well, you just said it related to them being inadmissible. That would have happened months later, right?
What are you saying? What?
You said that you knew they were fake because, or you were asserting they were fake because they weren't admitted through a hearing.
That's one reason. The other reason is we looked at it and it didn't make any sense. Didn't add up. And it was inconsistent with Travis's behavior.
What was that last sentence, sir?
It was inconsistent. We've seen a lot of his letters. None of them are dated. It just doesn't make any sense. The time frame doesn't make sense. The calendar doesn't make sense.
Yes.
The calendar didn't make sense. The date didn't make sense. It was her reconstructing a story.
That was your
That was my assessment,
handwriting.
and that was my wife's assessment.
Okay.
The day we got the letter.
Now, you also testified that you believed that the reason we had placed you on the witness list, we being the defense, had placed you on the witness list, was to keep you out of the courtroom, right?
Could you
Overruled.
Could you ask the question again?
You testified yesterday that of your belief, or you asserted that the reason you were on Miss Arias' witness list is because, only because, to keep you out of the courtroom, right?
Yeah, I felt that way.
Okay.
Yes.
You felt that way. Yesterday you said it as if it was fact.
Yeah. Well,
Who gave you that information, Mr. Hughes?
What information?
This idea that we put you on the witness list in order to keep you out of the courtroom.
Because when we had a hearing with your client before, we were asked to leave the courtroom. So I just assumed that if we came back to trial, that you would have us excused from the courtroom. So we deduced that from our experience with you in the past.
Okay. But there was be several other reasons to call you as a witness, wouldn't there?
What are you saying?
In January of 2007, you and your wife engaged in some correspondence with Mr. Alexander where you explained to him that he was being abusive to Jodi Arias, right?
Objection relevance as to that portion. Does that have anything to do with the prosecutor and this witness who haven't spoken in 3 years?
Approach.
Mr. Hughes, I'm going to show you an exhibit that has been marked, exhibit number 5. If you recall, just a few moments ago, I referenced some emails regarding between you and Mr. Alexander about how he treated Ms. Arias, and I'd like to approach, Your Honor. Could you please read the portion of the email that you wrote to him?
Okay. Am I just reading this first part, or is there more?
No, sir. The entire portion of the email that you responded, I believe it's more than one page.
Okay.
I believe your portion begins on page 3.
Do you have the email that began this conversation? I'm trying to find the context. I don't see it.
Your response on 13107 in its entirety is listed below. Is listed beginning page 3.
No, my question is, where's Travis's email to me that began this conversation?
Sir, I'm asking you about your response.
And Judge, he has the right to ask for the contents of this if he's going to be attempted to be impeached.
We just had an objection to Mr. Alexander's email being brought in. Now the state is saying they want it brought in.
No, I'm saying he's entitled to read it, which is different.
Well-
Mr. Nuri, do you have the email?
That begins on page 1 of 6 on 1/31/2007.
It's here?
If you look at page 1, it says Chris. That's Mr. Alexander's response to you. Signed, Travis. And then your response begins on page 3.
Now, what I'm asking for is, I see here, I start talking to Travis, and I'm obviously talking about something, and I don't know what I'm talking about.
Well, why don't you go ahead and review the portion that I asked you to review?
I'd like to know the context of this
Why don't
email.
you review the portion I asked you to review?
I can do that.